Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video I'm gonna talk about ASP.NET MVC Core App, especially connecting it with the SQL Server, and that too on the Apple Silicon. And we very well know that SQL Server does not run directly on Apple Silicon because of the obvious issues, but we can definitely run SQL Server with the help of Docker, and then we can connect ASP.NET MVC Core App with SQL Server. I've received a number of requests showing this particular use case. So we are going to talk about, and I'll demonstrate how we are going to connect ASP.NET Core App with SQL Server running through a Docker container. Friends, before I show you exactly how to connect the ASP.NET Core App to the SQL Server Docker container, I'll firstly show you what exactly the system setup I've got in my MacBook Pro. So if you see, I've got a Docker desktop running, and I've got images and containers. Especially I'm running a SQL 2022 container, which is I'm running on this MacBook Pro. Now this is the connection which I'm connecting to the RKV database, and within this I've got some bunch of tables, and let's say I'm going to use this DPT table in order to show how exactly this connection could be done. So the DPT table is a typical small table with department number, DNAME and location. So which has got some couple of rows. There are total 5 rows in this. So we'll be utilizing this particular database and this Docker container which is running, and will connect our ASP.NET Core App. Now, I'm not going to show you how to create an ASP.NET Core App on macOS. I think so you could refer out my previous videos within the same, and where I've demonstrated how you could use the .NET commands to create those applications. Before, and if you see, this is a typical app which I have created. It's just a scaffolding out here with a home controller, nothing else over there. I'll be utilizing these libraries, and I'll show you how to add it. And there are views which we'll be using, like the index view, which is a by default over here. And we'll be utilizing the app settings, which will set up the connections and everything, and the other stuff. Okay, so let's not waste more time. Let's get started. And because I'm not going to demonstrate it through the entity code framework, I'm going to use the Microsoft.Data.SqlClient library. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use the terminal window to add those packages. So this is very important, guys. I'm just going to add a couple of libraries or packages. So one is .NET add package, and I'll say Microsoft.Data.SqlClient. So this is the first one which you need to add, and though I've already added it, but in order to demonstrate to you, so this is the first one which I need to add. And then secondly, let me clear this so that it's better for visibility. The second one which we need to add is system.data.common. So this is the another one which will add as a package out there. So these two libraries are important because we are going to use this one, not the entity core framework stuff. And if you want to do with the entity framework stuff, I've already demonstrated in some other videos which are there on my YouTube channel. You could very well refer to that. Okay, so this is the step one where we have added two packages out there, or the two libraries. The second one, the second step, which is very important, is I'm going to use the app settings JSON file to set up my connection string. Now the connection string is very important because we need to read the connection string, and it is always a good practice to write down your connection strings within your configuration files. So what I'll do is I'll set up another one which is connection strings as the key, and then I'll say rkvcon. I can just give any connection name, and then I'm gonna set it up. So server is equal to localhost because I'm running it on my local PC. Sorry, not a PC but a Mac. And then my database is rkv, which I supplied. User ID is equal to SA, and then password. I've just kept it on my first name, last name, 1, 2, 3, something like this, though this is not a good practice, but this is just for the demonstration purpose. And because I'm running SQL Server 2022, With the introduction of SQL Server 2022, we have to set another two parameters which are very important, which is the trust server certificate. Like the client connection is a very secured connection, because if you don't pass that parameter, it exactly doesn't really work. But if you're not using SQL Server 2022, probably those two things are not required, or those two parameters are not required. So one is the encrypt, I'll say true, and the second one is trust server certificate. So this is the one which I'm going to use, and I'm going to pass true. So excuse me. So I've set up a connection string where I'm going to providing all those parameters to connect to that Docker container which is running in the form of a SQL Server 2022. Okay, so this is part 2, means the second step. So the first step, we added those libraries or packages. The second step is we added this connection string within our application settings.json file. Now the third thing is very important, because I want to use this connection string across, let's say, across all the controllers and everywhere. And the fundamental principle by which you could pass it as a startup kind of a dependency injection, which is the way by you could pass any kind of your let's say your own repository or other software architectural patterns. So we'll use the dependency injection over here to pass this configuration to, so that these configurations could be read across the controllers once they are in the run mode. So for that, I'll go on to the program.cs, and over here we'll use this, which is in order to actually do this. So what I'll do is I'll say builder, I'll just use the same one because I need to add a service. So builder.services.add singleton, and then I'll say builder.configuration. Now mind it, singleton is one of the patterns which we use. This is beyond the scope of this video to really discuss about the singleton, but I'm just using the same instance of the object to be used across all the controllers over there. And then I'm passing on this configuration, which could read the stuff from your app settings.json and could be utilized within your controllers. So this is part 3, or the step number 3. So once this is done, the next is you have to go into your controller. Let's say now this is part 4. So we are using two same libraries which I added it out as a packages, and let's go over there in your home controller because I've already used the dependency injection to pass on the configuration over here. So I could technically use the configuration, and let's say configuration, this object, and then I could technically use the same thing over here, which is my configuration, because I could receive this as a part of the dependency injection. So once I'm there, I could just set this configuration is equal to configuration. Okay, so this is part 4, or the step 4. So this is done, and the configuration is available. The connection string is available directly to us. So now what we need to do is, in the index method, we are just gonna set up the connection, read the data from the table, and then finally pass it to the view, and then we'll go back to the view to display that. So for here, what we are gonna do, I'm just gonna set our data table, which is ddt is equal to null in the start, and I'm gonna use SQL connection vcon is equal to new of SQL connection, and then what I need to pass is my configuration, which I'm using it through the dependency injection. I'm getting that object instance, and then I can say get connection string, and then what I can pass on here is the name of the connection string. So if you see, I'm passing on rkvcon. Now this must match, if we go back to the app settings.json, is this one which we created, rkvcon. This is the key, the connection name variable, or the key variable, and within the home controller I'm exactly using the same, this over here. So my connection would be created to the SQL Server, but using this connection parameters, which we are reading it through the configuration parameters, which is being passed as a dependency injection. Okay, so now once it is done, I'm just gonna open the connection, which is first step, and then I'm just gonna use the data adapter. Adapter is equal to new of SQL data adapter. The first thing is I need to pass some query, so I'm just going to use let's start from dpt because I'm just going to read some data, and then the second parameter is through which connection you're going to use it, and I'm going to use it through vcon. Okay, makes sense. Now because I'm gonna use it in the form of a data set, so I'll create a new of data set. Data set is nothing but a collection of data tables, so I'm just gonna use this adapter vadapt.fill, and I want to fill this VDS with that particular the data set which is being gonna read from the department table. So that's what it is. Okay, so I fill this around, and then finally I can say vdata table is equal to vds dot tables, and I could just pass on a 0 parameter like an index is equal to 0, because I have just stored one data table which is coming in the form of a select star from dpt. It goes into data set, and data set contains one data table in the form of a let's say index 0, which I'm definitely reading it over here. And so once it is done, now I have the full data table. I could potentially close my connection because I could now use the data table as an offline mechanism to go through. And then I could actually use view data to pass, let's say, department data, and I'll just simply say vdt. Now once this is done, so it means I'm actually passing this whole data table to the view by storing it within the view data and creating a key called as department data. We could use view data, we could use view bag, whatever suits you. And then finally the return view is there, which makes sense, and then it just goes back to the view. Now till here all looks good. We have done all the due diligence to create the connection, get the dependency injection, connection string. We are reading it from app.appsettings.json, and everything looks fine. Now the last step in this is go on to your views within index.html, and over here you need to pass a couple of things. So the first thing which we are going to use over here is I'm going to say using system.data, which is first, and then I'm going to receive that, which is data table vdt is equal to, I'll just simply say data table, and view data. So what was the name? Department data, right? So I'm actually converting it into a data table and storing it into vdt. So once this is done, I have a data table that is actually a representation of a department table, and now I could use a loop or anything within the Razor syntax to actually run through the rows and then finally display it on that table, which makes sense. Now what I'm gonna do is let's say we'll just go on to I'll say bootstrap 5 tables. So we'll just use a bootstrap table one. I'll just copy this code and we'll go back over here and paste it at this place so that we could use it. Okay, so this is our table. So we need the head, and if you see we just need 3 headers. One is the, let's say, department number, the second is department name, and the third is, for example, the location. I don't need the 4th column, which makes sense. And then so I'll just use, okay, so just I need to close this table. This is the table body, and this is another one, and I can just remove this, which is fine. So this is my table body and this is my table, okay, table tag closes out here. Okay, so now here we'll use some logic as a razor syntax over here to go through that data table. So what I'm gonna use is I'm gonna say for each, and we have the, let's say, data row, which is a class. So I'll say vd row in vdt, which I'm receiving from here, and then dot rows, because I'll move through each and every row and go through the row and then finally display that. Okay, so for this I'll just use this template and paste it over here. So I'll just use this, and I don't need a th, I just need a td, this one, and finally this td, because I want with every single iteration of the loop, I want a new row to be created and then displaying some data. So the first one I can just use department number. The second one column is, let's say, department name, and then the third one, which is let's say location, right? So these are the cases, 3 use case. And if you want to see what exactly was there in our table, so go back over there, run this, select these, and if you see, department number is the column name, department name is the column, and location is the column. So these are the 3 columns which we are displaying it over here. So department number, tname, and location, and that looks fine, which was the last step in our case. And now in just, let's say, we want to run this and see whether this works or not. So we'll go to the terminal, and I can just simply say, I'll just make it a little bigger, .NET watch run. So it will compile and then start running it, build it and run it. And then if it all looks good, it is gonna display the, and here we are. So you see it displays the department number, department name, and the location, and you have all those 5 rows, because as I've shown it to you, there are only 5 rows over here. So if we go back and run this command, so there are 5 rows out here, 10, 20, 30, 40 until 50. And if we see back in this, location, dname, and department number. So guys, this is probably one of the most simplistic and easiest way of connecting an ASP.NET Core App, MVC app, in which we have a controller, a model view controller mechanism, to connect to a SQL Server, which is 2022, running on a Docker container, and you get those results.